Welcome to The Six Shifts with Egan Cunningham, Jan Burkins, and Kari Yates, co-authors of Shifting the Balance, 6 Ways to Bring the Science of Reading into the Upper Elementary Classroom, published by Stenhouse Publishers. In this 7-podcast series based on their new book, Katie, Jan, and Kari, along with host Maggie Thoresen, address 6 more evidence-based shifts that teachers can make to bring the science of reading into the upper elementary classroom. In this first episode, the authors discuss the background and origin of this new Shifting the Balance book, their hopes for readers, and their experience of rethinking how to teach developing readers.
Welcome. My name is Maggie, and today we're going to sit down with the authors of the newest Shifting the Balance book, Jan, Kari, and Katie. There's already so much buzz about this book. Pre-sales have made it a #1 new release, and it won't even be out in print until September. So, ladies, please tell us a little bit about how you came to write this newest Shifting the Balance book.
Well, Maggie, the first Shifting the Balance book, as you know, struck a chord with educators all over the world, and we were just really touched and humbled by their responsiveness. And it crossed our minds early on that we might want to write a comparable title for upper elementary teachers, but we were a little tired at that point, weren't we, Kari?
We were tired.
But, we began asking ourselves, what about readers beyond second grade? And what about K through 2 students who are making strong progress as readers? And we knew that for the 2 of us, however, upper elementary was not as much of a sweet spot for us as beginning reading was. And then out of the blue, we got a really sweet, articulate, and compelling letter from Katie.
Katie.
After lots and lots of conversation about how the 3 of us, one of us is in Connecticut, one in Minnesota, and one in Georgia, might work together. And we decided to dive in and try to bring this project to life.
Writing is vulnerable work. And we know from experience that it can definitely be tricky to write with others. Yet, we knew Katie. We'd presented at a couple of conferences with her. We were familiar with her beautiful book on bringing the science of happiness into the classroom. And we knew she had this deep passion for children's literature. So we suspected she would have a lot to offer the project. And, Jan and I have said repeatedly since that we honestly don't think we could have done this project with anybody but Katie. And we are just so deeply grateful to her for, the smarts, the experience, the tenacity, and most of all, maybe the grace for the 2 of us that she brought to this project.
What a beautiful segue. I'd love for the 3 of you to share a little bit about yourselves as literacy educators. Katie, why don't you start us out and share a little bit about you?
Oh, thanks, Maggie. And I'm so humbled by Jan and Kari's kind words. And I've been so grateful to join them on this journey. They've really welcomed me on this book project from day one. I'm Katie, and I'm an associate professor at Sacred Heart University. I'm also a writer and literacy consultant. And for more than 10 years, I taught 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades. And my research these days focuses on children's literature, professional learning, and instructional methods in the classroom.
I'm Jan, and I was an elementary classroom teacher for 8 years, and I was a literacy coach for another 8 years. And I've also worked as a language arts consultant for the state of Georgia and as a district literacy leader. And I've been a full-time writer and consultant for almost 14 years now.
I'm Kari, and my experiences include time as a classroom teacher, special ed teacher, reading recovery teacher, and also as an elementary principal and district administrator. But no matter what my role, the constant for me has always been this driving passion for literacy.
And across the three of you, there's no shortage of robust education experiences. So why don't the three of you share a little bit about what you each brought uniquely to this project?
I came to this project already immersed in literacy research and reading science, but I have a real passion for the upper elementary grades and especially prioritize how we infuse joy into children's classroom experiences. So I was really excited to have an opportunity to apply this research background I've been trying to kindle and upper elementary classroom experience to work with Jan and Kari to write something that was scientifically sound, but also practical for busy teachers. And I'm also a mom to two boys. It's been a big season in our house. One of my sons just finished elementary school, and the other just finished middle school. So, paired with my education experience, witnessing their experiences as they made their way through the grades, as literacy learners especially, helped me throughout this project.
This is Jan, and I enjoy reading. I really do enjoy reading quantitative research. So the prospect of trying
It's really true.
trying to really take a deep dive into more research was enticing for me. And I really enjoy working to understand the big picture. And in this project, the big picture includes two books and how they align and work together, and then figuring out what pieces need to go into this second title so that all of them work together and it comes to life. And of course, I also have four sons, one in middle school now, and they're learning to read processes, and who they are as readers has been a part of all of my literacy work all along.
What I bring to the project, maybe age, experience, risk taking. I don't know. As a writer, one thing that is hard for me, whether I'm writing alone or with others, is sort of getting to this place where I feel ready to stop revising. And I know that this isn't always fun for my partners. But I think what it translates into, especially for this project, is the tenacity to really make sure we nail down language so that it would be clear, inviting, easy to understand, and of course also accurate. And I'm the mom of two daughters, one of whom really had a hard time getting a foothold in reading and writing throughout her school career, really. And so she is always in my mind as I'm doing work like this.
Thank you, ladies. I think one really important question that I know is on my mind is the K2 book looked really closely at emergent and early readers and was full of rich K2 examples. Although it also had applications for students who were beyond those grade levels, who may need support with foundational groundwork. Can you talk a little bit about who this 3 through 5 book is written for, and does it carry that same broad reach?
So it's a really important question, Maggie, and we talked about it a lot. And the shifts we offer in this new book are really for anyone who works with the students who have moved past the beginning to read phase and who want to help students learn to read with increasing accuracy, automaticity, purpose, and also joy. So while the label 3 through 5 tries to make clear that we wrote this with grade 3 to 5 teachers in mind, there's important connectivity between the two Shifting the Balance books. So we encourage teachers to interpret the grade level designations on the book loosely. They define the examples in the book, but not the science. So as teachers know firsthand, children's reading development really rarely fits neatly into exact grade levels.
That's so true, Katie. Yes, and just like upper elementary and middle school teachers tell us all the time that the shifts in the K2 book are of real value for them, we also know that the shifts in the 3-5 book, vocabulary, strategy, instruction, for example, will definitely be relevant for K2 teachers as well. So our intention was to offer K8 teachers something of value in this 3-5 book, even though, as Katie said, the examples in this new text are all from grades 3 to 5. So in both books, the science really spills across grade levels.
That really makes great sense, Jan, that idea of the science spilling across grade levels. One of the things that we hear often from teachers and those who have read the first book was how much they valued your transparency as you talked about the vulnerability that comes with questioning our practices and long-held beliefs. Did this new writing project carry that same level of vulnerability for you?
The quick answer is yes. When Jan and I began partnering on the first Shifting the Balance book, it really didn't take but a minute to realize that this work is as emotional as it is intellectual. It's not just a matter of understanding the technical or sciencey content. As educators, we all pour our hearts and souls into our work. And so sort of being called upon to make changes to some familiar and even beloved practices, it has a sort of intricate layer of coming to terms with and hopefully even coming to peace with what it is that needs to shift on behalf of children. So yes, it's vulnerable work.
And that vulnerability is the reason that we all decided actually to carry the 6 commitments from the first book into the introduction of the second book. And these were one of the first things that Kari and I wrote together when we were feeling most frightened by this project.
Mm-hmm.
And we offered them to others as guiding principles for taking care of ourselves and each other in this work. And although we aren't going to take the time to read them now, they're about being courageous, but also kind to yourself as you grapple with change. And even before you get your hands on the book, if you don't have the first book, you can get a copy of these 6 commitments as a free download at the6shifts.com/downloads.
The 3 of us have tried to challenge ourselves, I'd say almost every day for the last year or 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
to lean into the dissonance of these competing tensions that exist in the field with an open mind, an open heart, and a real critical look at the research. And we're human, so of course, some days we're better at this than others. Yeah. Which is why it's so nice to have partners who can give you a different lens for looking at something, or even yourself when you need to, right?
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's fast forward to thinking about a teacher and holding maybe a teacher that you know in mind. When that reader closes this new book after finishing and reading it, what do you hope they're thinking or feeling? What's your wish for this new book?
That's a beautiful question. I think our greatest hope for the adult readers of this book is that when they close the book, they'll feel empowered, that they'll understand the why of why some practices they may have held dear just aren't serving readers in the ways they had hoped, but that also they'll see this path forward that sort of inspires them to take action.
I think we also hope that we've given teachers the courage to honestly reflect on practices, as Kari was describing, which we know is really hard work. And we've tried to be honest about misunderstandings that we ourselves have held, and how reading science has helped us develop new understandings that we think hold promise for serving more children.
Well, ladies, thank you for joining me today. I know it's been so exciting to hear you share a little bit about this project. And I look forward to continuing this conversation as I get to listen and visit with you about each of these new 6 shifts in your book and get that message out to educators who are eager to read it as well.
Thank you so much, Maggie. We really appreciate you.
We're truly grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you, Maggie. This has been such a fun conversation.
Shifting the Balance: 6 Ways to Bring the Science of Reading into the Upper Elementary Classroom by Egan Cunningham, Jan Burkins, and Kari Yates is available from Stenhouse Publishers. You can learn more about these 6 new shifts, the 6 shifts from the first book, and the companion online classes for both books at www.the6shifts.com. We hope you enjoyed listening to The 6 Shifts with Kari Egan Cunningham, Jan Burkins, and Kari Yates. Future episodes will look more closely at each new shift, starting with a conversation about knowledge building. If you have students who have trouble with comprehension, you don't want to miss the next episode. We'd love to hear your feedback. Get in touch with us at marketing@stenhouse.com, and please share this with your colleagues who you think would enjoy listening to. Thanks for listening.